Springer, you were asked, what do you know about counterculture, which you typed in the Canvas chat, and that was the same question as the first journal. So we'll start off today by looking at the notes. And as you can see, the first section is just about counterculture in general. So let's go ahead and talk about that first.
Do you like this?
No. Hippies. Oh, dear.
Do you not like hippies? Why don't you like hippies?
I don't know. As long as they have jobs and give themselves a bath, I guess they're okay. But anyway,
That's rude.
the counterculture included mostly younger people, and it grew out of the protests involving civil rights in Vietnam. So it involved younger people, and it grew out of protests from civil rights in Vietnam. And one of the prevalent groups that were referred to during this period of time, especially those involved in protests, were known as hippies. And they were called that because they were supposedly hip and in tune with the changing times. And despite the stereotypes that you might see, that hippies were unclean and so on, they actually were more likely to come from upper middle class families, so their parents had some money. Which is why they could afford to take all kinds of time off and go to Woodstock and other things. And part of this had to do with being against materialism. Being against materialism. Materialism. Yes. So hence ragged jeans and easy to make tie-dye t-shirts. Longer hair. And so on. They didn't see the point in being obsessed with some of the typical looks that people had.
Tie-dye is pretty cool.
They can be done like this done like
Part of counterculture was also rejecting traditional family norms.
Now, did they reject all family members?
I wouldn't say not all, no, but they were rejecting the idea that couples should be cemented in a marriage. And so the idea of free love came about, and also communal relationships. Yes.
something's wrong with Jason's thing. You won't make let him make a copy of the notes.
Just sits there. Go up to the address. In the address bar. This, of course, was also helped by the existence of birth control, which was widely being produced at this point. This is also being assisted by the wide use of birth control. Which, of course, didn't do anything to stop the incredible rise in STDs. And as somebody pointed out in the bell ringer there, drug use became more common, leading to other health effects, such as the overdoses of a number of famous musicians. What? Yes, he wasn't necessarily associated with this. In fact, he was being prescribed medication and probably being a lot of it. Yes, a lot of it was given to him possibly by his manager as well.
Died on his way. Taking the poop.
But music also started to change quite a bit. It took a leap from typical rock and roll of the 50s into more pop culture based music, which probably started with the Beatles
Yeah.
and then
You listen to their music.
expanded. I think there is a music activity that goes along with this, yeah. But then expanded it into other groups in the United States as well. Some of this music, but not all of it, would also be fixed to protests as well. And speaking of music, in August of 1969 was Woodstock.
What year?
1969. It was originally designed for about 200,000 people to show up, but 400,000 ended up arriving instead. The theme was peace and music, which was true if you were one of the first people to arrive. If not, that meant shortage of parking. People had to end up abandoning their cars in some places. It also led to food shortages and unsanitary conditions.
Imagine 400,000 people in one spot.
It's too many people.
Students all go.
And nowadays it's like you can't even have more than 5.
But otherwise, the event involved no acts of violence. There were some drug arrests, and there was one overdose. Somebody fell from some scaffolding trying to get a better view, and somebody else was crushed by a tractor. But other than those 3 deaths, it went off without a hitch. And it was a free event, but many of the organizers ended up recovering costs through the recordings of music. But it was illustrative of the mass demand for some type of change from past norms, as I mentioned a couple of times throughout this section of the notes. And that will cause some of the interest that will be gained over other types of issues besides civil rights in Vietnam that we'll talk more about tomorrow. So for the remainder of the period, the reading for Unit 11 is open. And there's actually a few more pages with this, so you only need 3 items instead of 4 per page. It goes over Shaping a New America, Modern Feminism, the Right to Reproductive Rights, the Equal Rights Amendment, Roe versus Wade, the environment, other groups demanding equality, student activism, and flower power. So only need 3 items on the left-hand side for each of these for the Unit 11 reading.